Stock surge after India and Pakistan agree to cease hostilities and US announces a trade deal with China signaling likely tariff relief. Realty, utilities and IT are the biggest gainers. Stocks of travel and hospitality companies like Indigo and Indian Hotels rally after India reopens 32 airports for civilian flights following a ceasefire with Pakistan. Japan Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation will buy 20% stake in Yes Bank from SBI and other lenders for near rupees 13,500 crores subject to regulatory nods. Experts see it as a defining deal for the sector. Donald Trump's tweet saying he will sign an order to cut drug prices by 30% to 80% on Monday spooks stocks of Indian drug makers. Trump says US consumers will only pay the lowest price anywhere in the world. United States and China to temporarily lower tariffs on each other's products. A combined 145% tariff on most Chinese imports will be down to 30% for a 90-day period, while the 125% duty on US imports into China will drop down to 10%. Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Business Lunch, coming live from the CNBC-TV18 Motilal Oswal studios. I'm Vinny Motiwala and thank you so much for tuning in as always. Markets as of now today surely are chirped up in trade, but trading at the day's highest point as we can see it. 3.25% uptake coming in for the Nifty in terms of today's trading session. What we're seeing for Nifty, it's up more than 700 points in today's trading session, nearing the 800 points mark as well, 3.28%. 24,795 is what the Nifty is trading at. Sensex is trading up more than 2,500 points. We're seeing the Nifty Bank, that's managing to hold on to 3% gains as well. So we're doing well across the board, whether you look at the broader end of the market. That is doing well. 3.43% uptake for the Nifty Midcap. Nifty Small Cap is up almost 4% as well in today's trading session. So surely an interesting day that's coming up. IT is leading the charge. Other than that, we have metals as well as realty leading the gains. All this more than 4.5% gains coming in for this sector as well. So interesting to watch out for where the second half of the trading session will be. But as of now, clearly advance decline ratio also coming in favor of the advances versus the declines. But let's begin with the top story for today and what is leading to this run up in today's trading session. We have border areas of Jammu and Kashmir to Gujarat, which had seen renewed hostilities following Pakistan's violation of ceasefire agreement within hours of its announcement, remained calm on the morning of 11th May and last night with no fresh reports of firing, shelling or drone sightings. The DGMO talks between the two countries were scheduled for noon but have been postponed now. Parikshit is joining in with us to give us the latest update on this one. What are we expecting in terms of when is the meeting going to be held as well between the both the countries' DGMOs? Parikshit, over to you.
Well, the DGMO talks are important because this was the first time after 10th of May when the understanding was reached between the two sides to stop firing that the two DGMOs were supposed to meet. Now, these talks were supposed to happen at 12:30. We believe that they've been delayed by a few hours and will now happen around 5:30. We've been told by sources it's not unusual. Sometimes these things happen. Sometimes countries put more demands on the table. So what has happened here possibly is because Pakistan, we learned from sources, wanted to put a lot of issues on the table which were beyond the purview of military operations. They wanted to discuss the suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty and some other measures as well. Perhaps this is the reason why the talks have been delayed for a few hours. We also believe that India had a high-level security meeting at the Prime Minister's residence. Certain decisions have been also taken, and that view will be communicated to Pakistan via the DGMO of India. So perhaps there might be a little more preparation that both sides would want to do, and they would come back to the table to talk at around 5:30 in the evening. There is an important press conference scheduled by the Ministry of Defence this afternoon. So all eyes on that. But most what we can expect from this meeting is an understanding to stop firing, have peace at the border till the next DGMO meeting. This is only a meeting at the level of military officials. They do not discuss substantive issues of policy. And it's possible that both sides may set out a framework whereby in the next meeting, there could be officials to discuss the economic measures that India has taken, discuss about the Indus Waters Treaty as well, and to see how a larger ceasefire can be arrived on. So this is what we are picking from sources at this moment, but we will see very little information coming out of the DGMO meeting this evening. It will be a short meeting whereby both sides will only decide how to set a framework for talks in future, how to have more officials in the talks, and then have peace at the border till the next round of conversations between the two sides.
Right, Parikshit, thank you so much for that. But stay on with us and tell us more about India's military action during the operation and the economic measures that are taken as well. Parikshit.
Well, over the last 3 to 4 days, India launched Operation Sindoor, which is not over. And since 7th May, India has launched several military operations and economic actions against Pakistan, and they have had a strong impact. Now, Operation Sindoor began on the intervening night of 6th and 7th May. We had precision missile strikes on 9 terror camps in Pakistan on the 7th of May. This included places like Bahawalpur, Muridke, Muzaffarabad, which are command centers of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, the Lashkar-e-Toiba. We targeted terror camps which had actually trained terrorists like Ajmal Kasab and David Headley as well. More than 100 terrorists were killed, including those involved in the IC-814 hijacking. Now, how did we retaliate to Pakistan's drone strikes and airstrikes on 26 locations in India? Pakistan carried out retaliatory drone and missile strikes on 7th, 8th and 9th of May. India launched armed drones to destroy Pakistan air defense systems. The Indian Air Force neutralized air defense system of Lahore and damaged Pakistan's HQ-9 system. The HQ-9 system has been provided by the Chinese. We use the formidable S-400 air defense system, the Akash system, the L-70, the Shilka, the Barak air defense weapons to intercept Pakistani drones and fighter jets as well. In fact, Pakistani fighter jets were shot down by the Indian Air Force. We struck at major Pakistani air bases. Yes, India struck air bases on the 9th and 10th night with BrahMos supersonic missiles, which have a range of 260 to 290 kilometers. This is a first for a country to attack air bases of any nuclear-powered nation. 11 air bases were attacked in just 3 hours. This included Noor Khan, Rafiki and Murid. And these were air bases near Rawalpindi, the military headquarters of Pakistan. We struck at ammunition depots and the base of F-16 and JF-17 fighters in Sargodha and Bhulari. These were badly damaged, and attack on Bhulari Air Base killed over 50 people, we're told. And 20% of Pakistan Air Force infrastructure was damaged by Indian strikes. Now, continuing with Operation Sindoor, this was not just a military operation. This was a diplomatic, political, military and economic operation. Let's list out some of the economic measures that were taken. India suspended the Indus Waters Treaty, which is a lifeline for Pakistan. 80% of Pakistan's agriculture and 93% of total water use in Pakistan depends on the Indus Waters system. And the suspension could actually worsen Pakistan's fiscal and foreign exchange crisis. What is India's message? India's message is that blood and water cannot flow together. All trade with Pakistan has been stopped, and this includes onion exports and imports of cement and textiles, all put to a stop. All Pakistani visas cancelled, citizens have been sent back. So very strong measures being taken, and none of this changes. The DGMO talks that happened, the understanding reached to stop firing, have peace at the border, has nothing to do with the economic measures that we're taking. This is unconditional. We will continue to suspend the Indus Waters Treaty. We will continue taking economic measures to hurt Pakistan's economy. All of that does not change. And we've also sent out a message that any further ceasefire violation from Pakistan will be met very strongly, and any act of terror will be treated as an act of war.
Okay, Parikshit, thank you so much for the latest update coming in there on Operation Sindoor and what India is going to be doing as measures. But following the ceasefire with Pakistan, a notice has been issued to reopen 32 airports in India. Madhya is joining in with us to give us the latest update on what she's picking up on this front. Madhya.
Well, CNBC-TV18 had reported in the morning that new NOTAMs will be issued to withdraw the cancellations of flights at 32 airports. We were informed by airport officials in the morning about the reopening of these airports, and now it is confirmed. NOTAMs is notice to airmen to reopen 32 airports have been issued, which means all the airports across Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab, Himachal, Rajasthan and Gujarat that were closed due to military action will now open for civil flights. These airports were closed for operations since the 7th of May. The closure was extended till the 15th of May, and airlines had cancelled around 400 flights to these airports till the 15th of May. But the reopening of these airports doesn't mean all flights will resume immediately today. Indigo, for instance, has announced it will progressively commence operations on the closed routes. Since airlines have to plan in advance, open bookings inform passengers. So some flights may resume later today, but most likely normalcy in flight operations at the affected routes may take some time. But this is clearly an indication of at least normalcy returning. Pakistan airspace currently has many international flights flying in its airspace. Airlines like Fly Dubai, Fly Nas and Saudia Airlines are flying to and from Pakistan. It is also important to note that Pakistan continues to close its airspace for Indian airlines. India too has closed its airspace for Pakistani carriers. So the rerouting of international flights will continue for Indian carriers, and complete normalcy may take more time.
Okay, Madhya, thank you so much for that. And on that note also, look at Interglobe Aviation stock that's buzzing in trade today, snapping its 3-day losing streak. A lot of positives coming in. Obviously, India-Pakistan ceasefire, crude prices are lower as well, continue to be lower, and a lot of positive triggers in terms of Q4 earnings expected to be better. So yes, that is why Interglobe Aviation trading with gains of 7%. But on that note, we're going to slip into a very short break, viewers. Up next, an interesting take on United States foreign policy, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18. Now, in a rush to take the credit for the ceasefire, U.S. President Donald Trump has made a big U-turn in American foreign policy in South Asia. In just 140 words, speaking about India and Pakistan as moral, political and economic equals in his Truth Social post, Trump has undone the so-called process of dehyphenating India and Pakistan, which started after Kargil War more than 25 years ago. If the United States wants to mediate peace between India and Pakistan, Trump should take the most important question in any war. What is the question? Let's go to Sriram Iyer, who's joining with us to tell us about that.
Yes, that's the most important question in any war, is the objective. And that's a question that everybody should ask, not just Trump. Right from the very beginning, India's objective was very clear. We want to avenge the Pahalgam attack by taking down terror camps across the border. Now, these are people who Trump would describe as radical Islamic terrorists in his first term. Interestingly, it's not a phrase that he uses anymore, not so much in the second term. So India was at war with the terrorists. So while assessing what we achieved from the latest conflict so far, we need to ask if we achieved the goal of taking down those terror camps. I think the answer is a yes, to a reasonable extent. The next step from India was dependent on what the reaction from Pakistan would be, which ideally should have been nothing. Just like it did nothing when the Americans took out Osama bin Laden without even telling the Pakistanis. What Pakistan should have ideally done is to hand over the designated terrorists like Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar. So what Trump should note is that the Pakistanis didn't do that. Instead, the army retaliated on behalf of the terrorists. And as Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri pointed out just a couple of days ago, that if the Pak army stepping in is not a dead giveaway of the deep nexus between the security establishment in Islamabad and the terror network operating out of that country, then what is? Nothing could be more blatant. By Friday, it was very clear that both sides wanted to ramp down the war. The question was who would blink first. Like I said even a couple of days earlier, it's not an easy decision for any two countries. There had to be a mediator, and it was most likely to be the US. The problem is not that the US pushed for a ceasefire. The problem is the 140-word post from the US president that seemed to put both India and Pakistan on an equal scale, politically, economically, morally. By ignoring nuance and history, Trump administration has seemingly reversed a consensus that took years to build and sharpen. It was only after the Kargil incursion by Pakistan that the Americans acknowledge that the political and military establishment in these two countries weren't cut from the same cloth. It is that understanding that led to the joint announcement of the India-US nuclear deal in 2005. The then US Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice, admitted that India and Pakistan had to be dehyphenated. This consensus only got stronger with each passing year, irrespective of who the President of the United States was. Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden. On one hand, India's stature as a counterweight to China grew, and Pakistan's policy of grooming terrorists who would attack American allies kept eroding its image as a credible partner for the West in South Asia. The revival of the Quad, a strategic diplomatic partnership between US, India, Japan and Australia, which happened in 2017, cemented India's prominence on the global stage. In 2019, the Indian Foreign Minister, S. Jaishankar, reminded journalists in Washington, D.C., and through them, the US government, that India and Pakistan, cannot be put on the same pedestal. If you just, remember the quote, he said, how do you hyphenate a country which is 1/8 your economic size and reputationally your exact opposite? It's this, and India's role as the vaccine supplier to the world during the pandemic gave it an additional moral edge. On the other hand, Pakistan lost whatever leverage it had with America once the US decided to retreat from Afghanistan in 2021. It doesn't seem like Trump and his team, including J.D. Vance, considered any of these developments in history. India has no choice but to push back against the shift in narrative during the mediation. Whether Modi convinces Trump to eat his words or not, the reality on the ground won't be very different. India is still the bigger force, a more democratic country, a relatively self-reliant economy which is capable of more discretion than Pakistan is. As the US and China negotiate a trade deal, Trump would do well to remember that between India and Pakistan, India is the only one not surviving on its pledges to China. And as for the self-proclaimed Indian nationalists on the internet, they should remember that the battle is still on. It may not be fought on the border, but those negotiating for our rights and prospects with foreign powers across the table need your moral support just as much. Every society needs politics and diplomacy as much as the soldier's valor.
Absolutely, Sriram. Thank you so much for joining in with us. But that's all the time we have on this edition of Business Lunch on CNBC TV18. Thank you so much for tuning in. Up next, Midcap Radar.